What's up, fellow Vanguard nerds? I'm Babblerab, and we are alive finally after that long freaking hiatus. So, as I said in my channel update video, we're now running Pale Moon, Gears, and Nibutama as our main clans because money and different playstyle. The Bermuda support is looking pretty nuts so far, and there's that slight bit of regret for dropping the clan. But you know what? I made the choices I made, and we're gonna stick with them. So, without any further ado, this brings us to the Gear Chronicle Standard Plus build. So we got the G-Zone and we got the Standard deck. So I'm gonna go through the deck and then I'll explain I'll explain what some of the combos that you can do with the deck, or some of the stuff that I've done with the deck afterwards. So. Starter is the when wrote upon, draw a card. What are you called even? Primordial Draco Kid. It's got pretty cool art, so yeah, when wrote upon, you draw a card. Yay. And we got force markers. Kind of happy that I actually have a force clan that I'm using, because this would have gone to waste. So that's good. Then good trigger lineup. So we're playing 4 grade 3s. I found through playtesting the hard way that hey, anything above 4 is actually not optimal because it skewers and messes up your amount of grade 4s that you can run, and then subsequently if you cut more grade 1 or 2s, it messes that up as well. So we are running 4 because we don't have a choice. So this means that our trigger ratio is also slightly different. So we got 4 heal, unsurprisingly, 6 crit and 6 draw. Oh shoot. Good job, me. So yeah, 6 crit and 6 draw. Draw PGs, of course, because it's amazing. Grade 1s is 4 Wedge Move Dragon. This one is basically going to be used as a grade 3 whenever you're discarding it in general. Striding does count as discarding, which is why this deck can so seamlessly be turned into a standard plus deck. And it's got a first skill, which I should use a lot more, which is when he hits, you bind a card from your hand and draw a card. Not bad. Then we're running 4 copies of, I really wish I knew the names of these cards, Quickie Worker, which is when he's placed on the field, when he's placed on rear guard, bottom of the deck a card, and if it's a grade 3 or greater, Soul Blast 2, draw a card. You don't use your soul too much, so this isn't a huge issue. One of the best cards in the deck, which really helps with deck thinning, is Steam Fighter, oh my goodness, whatever. So every single time your Vanguard is placed, you draw and drop. This counts for stride, this counts for, I hope it counts for stride. When your Vanguard is placed, I would imagine that striding counts as Vanguard being placed. So this is annoying a little bit because it's mandatory, but at the same time, early on, you also want to see as many of these as possible so you can be cycling through your deck as quickly as possible to get to Lost Brick Dragon, because you only play 4, right? So it's annoying later on, and I've got a card in my G-Zone that actually helps get rid of it if it starts getting annoying, so that's nice. But yeah, early on, absolutely mandatory to play it and use it if you have it, because it's really good early on because it helps cycle through your deck. Grade 2s, we're running 2 Gun Bezel Dragon. I don't see people running this often, and I can understand why. It's, well, not entirely understand why, but like, you know, there are other choices you could be running. But my rationale for this is that he's 29k on his own, so without a force marker, he's huge. With a force marker, he's even bigger, right? But it could also theoretically mean you can put your force markers in other places and then have him swing for a huge number. He does bind himself, fine, but in the case of binding himself, you swing for a huge number, you're not going to call him down until you're ready to put pressure on your opponent in the first place anyway. So you're going to set it up so you can use him. And he does put himself in the bind zone, which adds 2 more grades to the amount you need to get to activate some of your pseudo G-Unit effects. So I like him because he just by himself, he's huge. And you don't ever call him down unless you have a grade 4, because 29k is great. And I think that reaches close to, if not a magic number anyway. So it might be more, but yeah. So we're running Steam Hunter Lippet, 3 of it. I will say this. In the premium version of this, so with the G-Zone, I would cut this down to 2 and run 4 copies of Steam Mechanic Nabu. but the reason being is because there's a certain G-Zone card, which I'll explain when I get to it. Because I do use a bit of time leaping in this deck to help get to what cards I need to bind. So that's why this is inferior with the G version. But I've had many times in the standard version where it's like, well, I want to get stuff bound before I actually go and do my axe skill to do a pseudo stride. So that's why she's good, is because it's before battle versus some of the other grade 2s are not. So she's good in standard, but I would say she's a bit inferior to Nabu in the premium version of this deck. So we're running 3 or 4 Nabu, depending on if you're going to be playing just standard, if you're going to be playing premium. So she's really good because she throws herself into soul, or when she attacks, you bind a card from your drop zone. This is like super crucial because you could bind like a grade 4, which then adds 4 more grades to the amount you need. She then stops grade 1s or greater, so if you're in premium and anyone is still using grade 1 PGs, that gets shut off. And then end of turn throws herself into soul, which is useful because this deck does use soul as a resource. And then you draw a card. I've had times with Warp Drive Dragon where you just call her from the deck. She replaces herself by drawing you a card so you don't lose anything. I mean, is it neg 2? You get a card into your soul, you get a card into your hand, and then you lose 2 rear guards. So it's it's like a neg 1, but I still find that it replaces itself enough to be useful. So she's really good with Warp Drive Dragon. I really like her with Warp Drive Dragon. And standard, she's slightly less good, and that's where Slip It gets better, is because you don't have the time leaping capabilities with the deck yet. I don't think they're like time leaps coming back, but they could have something where it's like a superior color card from the deck, not just the top of the deck like what Idealize does, but better. So yeah, Nabu is a good card, and I think she just gets better once time leaping gets involved. And then we're running 4 Lost Break Dragon. You want to see this card as frequently as possible because it's more cycling. The same case with Nabu. You could call her down early, throw her into soul, draw cards. So like the whole idea is you need to cycle through your deck as quickly as possible so you can see Lost Legend. Because if you don't see Lost Legend, you don't see grade 3, and then you're significantly in trouble. So he's good. Bind a card from your hand, draw a card. When you have a card in your bind zone, use a 13k. Also good, because guess what? 13k for Force Clans. Force Clans have bigger power than Excel and Protect Clans. Rip Nubatama. But that's another story after much suffering and playtesting. I don't know what the heck I'm going to do with the clan right now. It's a mess at the moment, so I'm still committed to it, but it's just really difficult to figure out what direction I want to take the clan. With everything else except Nubatama, it's been a case of I know exactly how, or not exactly, but I have a hunch of what cards are used where, which cards are not worth running. And usually after a game or two, I can find out, okay, why did I put this in the deck? The thing with Nubatama, it's just like every single card is like, okay, why did I put this in the deck? So it requires braining, but it's okay. I went and died psychologically while trying to make duos playable. They're still not. So I will do that with Nubatama as well, because I'm crazy like that. Anyway, you run 4 Lost Legend. This is kind of the most important card in the deck. I was originally running, I think, up to 6 or 7 grade 3s, and I found that cut into either the odds of seeing these guys. I think I was down to 3 at one point, and that was a horrible idea. And in addition, it also could cut into your grade 1s and your grade 2s. I'm probably, like, my hand's probably off the scene, but whatever. So 4 is ideal. I'm thinking that that's probably going to be the standard for this as well, because Gear Chronicle just seems to be able to cycle through the deck a lot and then just hit the grade 3s that they need through just drawing a sheer number of cards. They don't do a lot of +1, but they do a lot of drop and draw, which is surprisingly great in how it synergizes with how everything works. So 4 actually works most of the time excellent. But otherwise, the card's great. It does your pseudo stride, it gets to your main strategy of the deck, and then like if you're doing standard, you will use the second effect because there's literally nothing in the deck that actually really counterblasts except for Gun Bezel, which I'm guessing is why it's not used as much, is because, hey, I want to draw a card off of Lost Legend instead, but I'm crazy like that, I guess. So yeah, you run 4. I would never run less than 4. I think like you want never run less than 4, period. So 2 Idealize and 3 Mystery Flare. I see people running 6 in total. I think I've seen larger amounts, but I find that in general, I don't have many issues with 5 grade 4s. There have been a few times where I've gotten unlucky, I will say that. and it has screwed me over. But like, it's the same case of if you're only running a few copies of something that are absolutely essential to your combo piece, but you can't afford to run any more. I mean, you could afford to run more, but it's the exact same case of with duos where I'll damage check a Lamray and then I'm just sitting there going, there goes everything I was planning on doing this game. So I know you could mitigate that by running 6 to an extent, but overall I've found very little issues with running 5. I'm not saying 5 is the optimal number. I'm not saying that by any means at all. I'm just saying 5 is the number that I'm comfortable with the current ratios that I have in this deck, and I have not found problems with running 5. So as long as you know what you're doing and you're being smart about what you're putting back into your deck when you can and what you're holding in your hand to use for later, then you should be okay. Again, this card is why I feel as though I can get away with 5, is because if I drop one and I see this, I can put it back into my deck. If you damage check like 2 of this, then I don't really know what to do. I'm not sure what to say. Like, not really sure what you do in that situation when you damage check key cards, especially if you can't afford to run, or if you're running 4 and you've damage checked most of them. So, yeah. Again, 5 is what I'm running. If you want to run 6, run 6. So, for the standard version of the deck, that would pretty much be the end. But we are also doing standard plus, so we're now going to go through the G-Zone that I have slapped together. And it's actually, the G-Zones actually makes this deck way more fun as well. So one copy of Metapulsar Wonglong. I don't know if I spelled the name or pronounced the name correctly, but we're just going to go with it. He's got a very cute ability where after he attacks, you call something from your bind zone. Obviously, the combo potential with 2 cards is quite nice with this guy. With Gun Bezel, you swing with him, he's 29k because you have a grade 4. You bind him, you have 1 counterblast, whatever. And then Wonglong swings, you counterblast, you call him back. You swing again. You would use 3 counterblasts with this, sure, but that's also a case of 29, 26 minimum, and 29 minimum again. In addition to anything you have here, and odds are, if you're using Gun Bezel, you probably have a force marker here. Right, so it's a cute play that doesn't neg your bind zonal. However, the other option is, if you have a Nabu bound, you can go swing, end of battle, call Nabu here, swing, bind something from there, throw into soul, draw a card. So, also good combos with the 2 cards. So that's why I like Wonglong. I don't stride into as much as I used to because of a certain card that I'm about to show you, but the potential is there, and the multi-tacking is actually really, really cool with the card. Then we're running 4 copies of Warp Drive Dragon. So, in the standard build, you don't have access to the ability to get to your grade 2s from your deck. So whatever your ratios are, unless you have Idealize, which is only the top card of the deck. Am I crazy? No, I'm not. Call the top card of the deck. You have no ways to actually get to the grade 2s that you want. This is why I want to run 4 Nabu when I'm running a G-Zone, is because he swings. Does he swing? No, he doesn't swing. He uses his skill. You get a Nabu from the deck after you've time leapt, I think that's the word. Ideally this guy, or this guy if he's getting on your nerves. Girl, guy. Whatever. This card and this card, it doesn't really matter about what is what. TBH. Right? So you'd time leap. You would then call the Nabu from the deck. Swing. Say you've got a spare Lost Legend in your bind zone, or in your drop zone. Bind it. Throw into soul, draw a card. Like, that is the whole kind of negging yourself, but it more or less pays off. Because you get a card to your hand, sure, fine. You get total grades of at least, I would say at least 2, unless you're a dingus and you're binding your grade 0s, which doesn't achieve anything. So ideally you get at least 2, possibly more. The potential is up to 5 grades for Mystery Flare. And you get a card to your hand, and they can't grab your ones. It's really good. So, the best part is, because your target is no longer on the board, this doesn't come back. Not like you really want this to come back anyway, because like it has to be called from hand, so it's not a huge deal. But I just find that the whole little time leap mechanic, the fact that this is generic, makes it really easy to start getting towards those 19 grades for going for that extra turn with Mystery Flare, which when you have the G-Zone, that should be your whole like plan, is just to rush to grade level of 19 so you can take the extra turn. The fact that it says you can't ride, but you can still stride, makes us even deadlier. And it is entirely possible that you can top deck something that will stride, discard. Now I've taken an extra turn. Now I've strode. Let's go. It's not as scary when it's just, oh, I'm just going to go this guy here. But it's infinitely scarier when you face this thing down, followed by another stride. Pseudo stride, stride, you get it. So I find that this does an absolutely phenomenal job of getting towards the 19 cards, 19 grades for the extra turn. And it's a really, really good add to it. I don't actually regret doing it at all. Because prior to that, it was like, oh, I'll go with this. Oh, yeah, that's great. And then Ragnarok was like literally my end game, but like with Warp Drive, so much better. And it's not really expensive either, like the other card I was running in it. I don't think it was Ragnarok, it was whatever the heck the card is. Future Me flashed the other name of the card on the screen. I don't remember what it was. But it was like a Counterblast 2, Soul Blast 1, bind up to the same number of or bind up to a certain number of rear guards on the board, which is fine, but the thing is, superior calling stuff from your deck seems to just, or not seems to, like just is better, because you're not like heavily negging yourself, and you can get to the key cards you need. Anyway, so my theory with Ragnarok is that decks are running grade 0 draw PGs, right? So ideally, because of the greater freedom it allows someone to have, you should be running the draw PGs, because it frees up more space in your grade 1 lineup, and it's a draw trigger, so it's not, you're not wasting a space with a PG and a space with a draw trigger. Now you have them all in one, right? I'm sure everyone's like, yeah, we get it. Ragnarok's like, I'm going to swing for 2 crit, and you can't PG this. So now they got to commit to the guard, unless they want to take 2 crit to the face minimum. Again, I'm playing 6 crits. Not the hugest amount, but it's still, the crit presence is there, right? So you're taking a minimum of 2 damage from this. Plus, if you wish to guard, you have to commit. You get a G guard, sure. You got to put triggers down. Yeah, they have higher guard value, but I'm still taking higher guard value triggers out of your hand. Sure, you can use a PG for later, but you can't do it on Ragnarok. If you are playing the grade 1 PG, whatever, but that's just my theory for why I run Ragnarok. So, I think it's good. It does do pressure, and it's going to force cards out of hand. It would be like if Metalborgs were, stop Sentinels rather than just grade 1s or greater, but oh well. Then we're running 2 copies of Chronos Command Revolution. I am not running Chronos Command Dragon. I didn't find there to be any space in the deck or in the G-Zone, so that's kind of what happened. He's still good because you can bottom of the deck your opponent's entire field. What's actually interesting that I just figured recently was that theoretically, if he's on the board, I need to read him first. Oh, it's less good. So yeah, that would not work as well. So he goes in bottom of the deck the entire field. So if you want to try to set up for him to actually recycle your own things, you would have to have stuff on the board from last turn, which runs the risk of them being retired. So what's interesting is I might just cut him for Altered Dragon entirely. What's nice, though, is the fact that he does bottom deck the opponent's entire field on place. So there is that. That is good. You do lose your whole board because I don't play Chronos Command Dragon, but in my opinion, it's not a huge deal. If I really wanted to run Chronos Command Dragon, I would probably just cut a Warp Drive Dragon and then cut 2 of these for 2 copies of Altered. But we will see. There's a lot of options that you have with the G-Zone here, just in terms of generic stuff. The bright side about this is that most of the really expensive stuff, so like Next Stage, I think is it Chronovisor Heritage? Don't quote me on that, but it's the one that gives you an extra turn. Most of them don't work too well because, in my opinion, the stuff that has the most synergy with the deck is not Zodiac Time Beast, so you don't get the extra turn that way, but like it doesn't really matter too much because I think Mystery Flare does a pretty good job of that. However, that would be really hilarious to be able to go extra turn from Mystery Flare, extra turn from Heritage, and then I'm not sure what you do in that regard if you got 2 extra turns coming at you at once. Like, you're pretty boned in that regard, because I don't think you can survive 2 extra turns. That's 3 battle phases where you don't get to replenish your hand. Not sure what you do in that regard. So the best alternative, in theory, is running, I don't even know the name of this guy, Beyond Order Dragon, because if you somehow got into GB7 prior to striding this guy, and then you just finished taking your extra turn with Mystery Flare, you can then go, if you hit the Stride Enabler of some regard, or like one of the 1-card strides, you can go beyond order, and you get 2 battle phases. It's more or less an extra turn, but you don't get the extra drawing. But he still goes swing, end of turn, restand, new main phase, and then you can just call a new field down if you want to. So it's kind of like a pseudo extra turn. So it's still good in that regard. But yeah, one of the reasons I'm running him is because, well, it's a GB8 and he gets an extra battle phase, and then seeing the combo potential with these 2 cards is actually pretty great. Extra turn, 2 battle phases the next turn. So again, it's not guaranteed that you'll hit a stride or they'll hit a way to stride off of 1 card after you take your extra turn because you don't have a hand after that. But in the event that you do, you pretty much win, because Lost Legend's not going to do a lot by himself because he can't do anything to actually change anything, because you can't ride, right? But it says nothing about not being able to stride, which makes Mystery Flare like infinitely more deadly, and that's why your main game plan is to rush Mystery Flare as quickly as possible. So the G guards, we got Pandora Chimera. I'm probably just gonna cut it for Uru at a 3rd copy because it just doesn't do anything. I might be using it wrong, sure, but I just found that like your opponent gets to choose, so they just choose something that's not going to be useful. And I think it just doesn't like work as well as like Uru does, where it just bottom of deck stuff that you need to recover for next turn. So this will probably get cut for 3 copies of Retroactive Time Made in Uru. And again, the reason why I'm running 2 is because you can bottom of deck your grade 4s to load them up for Lost Legend next turn. You can bottom of deck cards that you need. So it's just more putting stuff at the bottom of the deck, particularly in the case of the main deck grade 4s, just so you're able to get back to using Lost Legend's skill and you have the cards that you need. So that's why I'm probably just run 3 and just cut Pandora Chimera entirely. I may run the Unflipper one, I just have to get a copy of it. So there's that. And then we're running a copy of this. What are you called? Pulsar Saver. Oh, jeez. Lishu. Yeah, let's say I spelled that right. Let's say I pronounced that right. Because what he does is number of cards is 1 or more. It's absolutely going to be 1 or more, gets 5k. So 20k guard already. And if it's 5 or more, very likely it's going to be 5 or more. Another 10k. So it's a 30k G guard for 1 Soul Blast. So it's really good. And that's can keep you from being dead. Anyway, that is the entirety of my standard and standard plus year Chronicle deck. Again, the reason why this works so well and that you can just throw G-Zone in and call it a day is solely due to Wedge Move Dragon. Because, again, whenever he's discarded, you can discard him as a grade 3. Stupid thing is that if it's discarded by an opponent's card effect, you can actually just say, I'm going to just discard this at a grade 3. When this card would be discarded, yeah. I don't know why you would do that, but, you know, if you want to be cheeky, your opponent could be like, yeah, I'm going to go Kujikiri Kongo effect. And they'd be like, all right, I choose Wedge Move Dragon, and I'm going to activate his ability to discard him as grade 3. Your opponent's going to be going, why? And you'd be like, oh, felt like it. Seems like a good idea at the time. But anyway, overall, this deck is a lot of fun to play. I do want to try to get some footage of me actually running it. I'm going to have friends over in the next day or so you can expect some games, hopefully, to be recorded in that time. But they probably won't be up until after I've posted the deck. So yeah, if you have any suggestions or comments, leave them in the comment section below. I am happy to hear what you guys think of this. And overall, I will talk to you guys in the next video, which should be the Pale Moon Standard deck. So peace.